Good morning, Bitcoiners. This is Daniel with the 57th episode of Citadel Summer. And we're getting down toward the end, final approach. 2 weeks left for Citadel Summer. And today I want to talk about retiring on your Bitcoin, which I think a lot of young people are pretty excited about retiring on your Bitcoin, retiring early on your Bitcoin. And I'm actually retiring next year. So I guess I'll be retiring on my Bitcoin to a certain extent. But really, the way I think about it, even though I'm old enough to retire, which I am, what I think of it as, because I was, until I found Bitcoin, I was planning on working, past, retirement age, so into my 70s. That was my original thought. I've since Bitcoin, and I've changed my mind, and I'm going to retire. But the way I think of it is, I am going to stop reporting for duty to my fiat job, right? I'm going to stop working for someone else. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop working. As a matter of fact, if you followed my channel, you know that the reason I started my channel was because I and a few Bitcoiners I know started a business. So rather than stopping working, I'm actually going to continue to work, but I'm going to work for myself. So I'm retiring from my current job, but I'm not going to stop working. And I think that's a really important distinction, especially for you young Bitcoiners. I think it's the wrong mindset to have, to say, I'm going to use whatever Bitcoin I can accumulate at this point and try to ride that into sitting on the couch and playing video games, or whatever retirement means to you. Stopping working, I think, is the wrong thing to do. I think, Bitcoin is based on proof of work, right? You get value from the work you put into the world, right? Your time and energy, you get value for that, and you put that into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the way you save that time and energy and bring it into the future. But that doesn't mean you should stop working. As a matter of fact, I think, since this channel is Citadel Summer, and it is the road to your Citadel, remember, acquiring Bitcoin and holding it are the two of the biggest themes of this channel. Is you acquire Bitcoin and you hold it. How are we going to be able to hold our Bitcoin over the next few years as World War III plays out, as the nation states collapse, and as they start to grasp at straws? And each nation state is going to do different stuff to try to grab on to the lifeboat that is Bitcoin, and maybe even try to separate you from your Bitcoin. Well, one of the ways is by having a community. I've talked about that a lot. Another way, I think, is by having an operating business. And Saylor did a talk at Vegas 2025 about 21 ways that you can personally use his infinite money glitch, right? And the first step on that path is start a business, right? Form an LLC, super easy to do in the United States. I think it's easy to do in Canada too, and probably other countries. I'm in the US, so that's what I'm familiar with. And I did start an LLC. As a matter of fact, the day that Saylor made that speech was the day that we kind of launched our business. So I started an LLC. I have some business partners, and we're starting an operating company for Bitcoin education, and coaching, and that's our business plan. And for me, learning how I haven't been a business operator myself, right? So I'm learning that, and I'm watching videos about operating a business, trying to learn as much as I can, and I always learn by doing. So that's what I'm doing right now. I love the content of Alex Hormozy. I think he's a great guy about the power of working hard, right? Bringing value to the world, and all the strategies that he's used and the tactics that he uses. I think his videos are awesome. He just did a free live online webinar, right, when he launched his $100 million book. So I didn't get to see it. I actually wanted to see it, and I didn't make it happen. I had stuff that was going on Friday when he was doing that, but I heard it was awesome, and I definitely want to watch it, the replay of it. So Alex, great guy. I think having an operating business is going to be super important, because I think you're going to want to have you're going to want to make real world connections. And if you have an operating business, like I think what are good operating businesses? You got to be bricks and mortars, right? It's got to have a storefront, or it's got to have a place where you're doing business. You could be a carpenter. You could be any one of the trades. You could have a restaurant. You could have an entertainment venue, a bar. I think these are the class. A laundry is great. Money laundering, right? Go together. A Bitcoin well, I don't know about laundering your Bitcoin, but a cash business, an operating business that you can use as a focal point to have a presence in a community, especially. That's why I think retail kind of businesses where people are coming through, or where you're providing a service to the community are great, right? Building. This is the time for building for Bitcoiners, right? Those kinds of businesses are great. I think you want to be able to make connections with people in the community who are hard workers, who want to have an economic future, maybe got into Bitcoin a little bit late. Maybe Bitcoiners will be attracted to your community, right, and want to come and work for you. Because we want to we want to bring value to the world, and we want to get rewarded for that value in Bitcoin, or at least in fiat that we can convert to Bitcoin. So having a focal point that's an operating company, because then you can do the steps that Saylor talked about. You can run some of those infinite money glitch plays. You can borrow money. You can get if you have a business, you can buy the capital investments that you need to run the business. Like if you're going to run a bar, for example, an entertainment venue, you can have the building, you can have the all of the furniture, all of the things that it takes to run that business, and all of that stuff is going to depreciate over time. You can write that off. You can play the business game. You can borrow money against the business, against the potential profits of the business, right? So look at that Saylor video from Vegas 2025 for his 21 steps for you to run that infinite money glitch. But I'm not even talking about that here. I'm talking about working for yourself, right, in whatever capacity that is, with your LLC, and not retiring. Like two of my favorite Bitcoiners, Jor and Jerry. Sorry, Jerry is one of my favorite Bitcoiners, but I'm thinking about Rajat, right? So Jor and Raj have both stopped working their fiat jobs. They didn't retire, but they said, I'm not working this job anymore. This is not for me. They found Bitcoin, and now they have their own YouTube channels where they're creating their. Jor has an operating business, I think, with his brother, where he makes golf accessories like club covers, right? And I think that kind of business is super important. I think, if you can get into that, you can have a business that's a car washing business. You can power wash. You can people's driveways and houses. You can mow lawns. That kind of business, especially where you're going to get some people who are going to work for you, right? making those kinds of connections in the community and hiring good people is always a great idea. They're going to be your allies moving forward when you are building your Citadel. I think Peter McCormack, people love him and hate him in the Bitcoin community, but one thing he's done is this exact approach. He went to Bedford, he bought their football team in England. You know, that football is what we call soccer here in the United States. He bought the football team. I think he bought a bar, right? So he is using this approach. He's building businesses in this community that he wants to make into a Bitcoin community, into a high trust community where there's an economic engine, right? And that is going to give him, he actually hired security during the riots that were around there recently, his own private security to help the town police to keep everybody safe and keep things safe and orderly. So I think that approach, the Peter McCormack approach, is a super powerful approach for a Citadel, because you don't want to be one dude out there with your shotgun in a trailer somewhere, right? Or as nice as your property is, some permaculture paradise prepper, you want to have a whole community. You want to bring everyone up and form this high trust community, or even better, find a high trust community and build into that, right? So that you can leverage that existing infrastructure for your security and the security of everyone else who's part of your community and contributes to the Citadel, right? That's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about. I have my eye on a place where I want to start. I have my consulting business, my Bitcoin education business, but I'm actually thinking about finding a spot where I can get an actual storefront business, a real business in a community. And I have my idea where I want to have my Citadel, and I have my idea of some of the businesses that I want to try. So that's what I'm thinking about. Retiring on your Bitcoin is a fantasy, and I think it's kind of a juvenile fantasy. Get out of your fiat job, as soon as possible. Having that revenue stream is great. Starting to build, the first one I heard speak about it was Jor. I'm sure he got it from somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but he said start building the spokes of your revenue streams to move forward, to get away from that fiat job, right? And you can do it while you're still working. That's what I'm doing right now, trying to build up at least a couple of the spokes, right? So build those spokes up. Each spoke can be a revenue stream, and some of those spokes can be revenue streams that are you're paid directly in Bitcoin, right? The more of those, the better, right? Because you're providing value that people are willing to separate themselves from their Bitcoin, right? That's how much value you're providing. One of my favorite Bitcoin companies, there's the sun coming up, burning off some of the mist that we have over the lake. One of my favorite little internet companies, I use Soap Miner's soap all the time. He only sells it for Bitcoin, right? And that tallow soap is awesome. And he's always experimenting with new blends, right? I love the pine tar soap. I love that one. And he's always coming out with new ones. My wife loves the lavender soap, right? So it's really, really good stuff. It's Bitcoin only, and that's the kind of stuff that's going to come down the pike. I think there's going to be a renaissance in things like really good local butchers and cobblers to make shoes for people that last a long, long time, right? Tailors that, like in the old days, someone would buy a suit when they, stopped growing, or when they were close to stopping growing, like maybe a young man, right? And you would have enough material in it that you could have your local tailor let it out for you as you got older, and the suit would last so long that you'd have it for years and years, not just for a couple of wearings, which it seems like some stuff lasts now, right? Haberdashers, right? People are going to maybe start to dress a little better. I can't really talk much about that, the way I'm dressing, but it's summertime. This is my summer outfit. It's my costume for my Citadel summer shows. So all of that stuff, quality merchandise, quality services are all coming back. You can start by forming your own Bitcoin business, right? Bitcoin quality, you're going to offer goods and services that are worth spending Bitcoin on, and attracting Bitcoiners to buy those things. And even more importantly, if you start a business, attracting employees, people who can work for you, right, while they're, you know, getting their stack together so they can start their own business eventually. But people who can work for you, and maybe you can even pay them in Bitcoin, and that would really attract some high quality people. Anyway, yesterday's was a super. I didn't even realize how long it was. I don't know if you guys watched the Simulation Sunday yesterday. This is going to be a short one. I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll talk to you tomorrow. In the meantime, peace.